Hello, magical family. Thank you for joining me today on my YouTube channel or IGTV, The Wizarding Sibs. Today we're going to be doing a video that hopefully will be very fun and useful to you, and that is how to create magical photos on a budget. So I'm completely aware that not everyone can afford fancy Harry Potter merchandise like Noble Collection or sometimes other official Harry Potter merch, but I want to let you know that you don't need those things in order to create magical photos. I have to say that I have been a culprit of consumerism. I have a shopping addiction. I love buying Harry Potter merch and collecting, and that's where my money has been going to lately. But I want you guys to know that my collection has not always been this big. Growing up, my brother and I actually didn't own a lot of Harry Potter merch. We mainly had our books that we shared between the family, and that was it. We did have the luxury of going to Universal Studios or Warner Brothers Studios tour, and we would pick up little souvenirs here and there, but really it took years for me to grow my current collection. So I wanted to let you know that don't feel bad if your collection is not huge and you are struggling to think of what to take photos of, because you don't need all those props. Obviously, it's nice to have them, but you can still make fun, magical edits even without them. So I'm going to talk about some tips here. So tip number one is to use local locations. So I know that not everyone has the luxury of being able to travel to go to Universal Studios in Orlando, California, Japan, or take a trip to Europe and visit the UK and see Warner Brothers Studio. I know it's not feasible for everyone, but I just want to let you know that you don't need to be in those magical places in order to have magical backgrounds, because you can use what you have right in your backyard. So for me, things that I notice around my own city tend to be university campuses, old buildings, and parks. I think those three things are my go-tos in terms of finding backgrounds that look maybe very European, maybe mimic Hogwarts. So it's good to check out those areas. Personally, I love going to my own university campus, which luckily I live very close by and it's walking distance. But I love it because it actually looks like Hogwarts. It has a lot of old historical buildings, and it's the perfect place to make it look like you're in a European UK background. So that's where I take a lot of my photos. The other place I would say is parks, because with trees, you can always make things look very whimsical. Here where I live, public parks are actually quite sparse, but I know that other cities have beautiful public parks, especially in Europe. There's gorgeous parks, there's forests that you can visit, and you can really make your pictures look more ethereal and magical. The other thing is, just wander around to see if there's any old looking buildings that look like they could be from the Wizarding World. All you really need is a wall. All you really need is a wall with stones that looks like you're at Hogwarts to use as a background. The other thing that I like to do is, you'll notice that sometimes I take a lot of pictures against a black backdrop, and I'm really lucky that in the apartment I live in, there's actually a black wall on the balcony, which I tend to shoot a lot of photos on, and it makes the perfect backdrop to take kind of those studio-like pictures. But so I would recommend, even if you can't find a magical location, even just using a simple white background or a simple black background. You can even use a bed sheet of a solid color to put it behind you and then later edit it so that it blends in better. You can use that as a background to make a picture stand out a bit more and be a bit more creative with your edits. Tip number two is having basic props. So like I said, you don't need Noble Collection, you don't need any extravagant official Harry Potter merch. You can literally use what is lying around your house or your kitchen and cupboard, or anything you find while shopping around that looks kind of magical, you can use and incorporate into your photos. So what I tend to like collecting, especially for potions, are all of these empty flasks. So this is just a small select few that I have. I have even more. Whenever I see an interesting jar or flask that looks like it could be a good potion bottle, I collect it. I tend to be a hoarder, but I collect it because it's good for background props. Especially if you're into making DIY potions, it's really nice to kind of look for interesting bottles. So this one, for example, is Patron. I never actually drank it, but my friend was drinking it and I really liked the bottle, so I kept it. And then, I don't know, my parents gave me this random flask. Who knows where they got it from. And this one, so this flask is something that I used in a photo, and I think that I got this one from IKEA for very cheap. So the photo that you see on Instagram literally was holding the flask like this, and there's nothing in it clearly, but what I did was I used PicsArt on my phone to edit a smoke illusion in it to make it look like there was a potion inside. And ta-da! I had a magical photo with a basic IKEA flask. One prop that I think is essential is a wand. Now this wand I got from Universal Studios Orlando, and it's the interactive wand, but my wand collection is actually not very big. Essentially I have only one wand, and that is Hermione's wand. This is my very first wand. The interactive wand was bought by my family to use amongst all of us when we're in the parks, and then Craig, my brother, has the Elder wand, which I sometimes steal to take photos. So essentially we only have 3 wands amongst our entire family. But if you don't have the money to invest in an actual wand, you know, wands look kind of like twigs. You could probably find a twig in the forest that kind of looks like a wand. But I know great Instagrammers who are super creative. For example, Muggle Styles, Bonnie and Sunny, they actually created their own wands out of bubble tea straws. So it's possible to DIY your own wand and still make it look amazing. Another thing I find helpful in making your photos magical is the type of clothing that you choose to wear. Not everyone can afford the full head-to-toe Hogwarts uniform. I know that. For me, it took me 15 years to get the whole thing. I first started off wearing just a plain white button-down that was my own with a plain gray cardigan from H&M, and then I put like a Gryffindor pin on it, and then later on I did eventually buy the tie and a scarf. But for a good few years, that was my basic Hogwarts uniform. And then I did eventually upgrade to getting the actual official cardigan when I went to the parks, and then only this year or last year in December did I buy the actual cloak and decide that it was time to make the full investment. So in total that took 15 years for me to build my Hogwarts uniform from head to toe. So you don't need a cloak to take magical photos. You can essentially use any piece of clothing from your wardrobe. For me personally, I don't always want to look like a Hogwarts student in every single one of my photos. I want to be able to showcase my own style and my own sense of fashion. So sometimes it's nice to just pick out magical looking fabrics or pieces from your own wardrobe to incorporate into your photos. For example, this shirt I recently bought, and I can use it at a dinner party, at any event, but I found the material just very magical, and I can use it now in my magical edits. So the third tip I have is editing software. There are so many apps that you can download even on your phone to make your pictures a bit more magical. For me, I like to use an app called PicsArt, which is free for download. It's basically a more simple version of Photoshop, but you can do all sorts of creative things with it. They have free stickers that you can use, already pre-made designs that you can add into your photo. You can take yourself in and out of backgrounds. You can add a lens flare to your wand. There's so much flexibility within that simple app that allows you to make your pictures a bit more magical. If you wanted to do a bit more complicated edits, then you can go ahead and get Photoshop. The great thing about the day and age that we're living in is that there is YouTube, and there are so many free tutorials out there where you can learn the basics of Photoshop. There are a few Instagrammers that I love that are like complete experts in Photoshop, it seems. For example, Trey from I Am Black Harry, Thomas from White Noise. I love their magical edits because they're able to take themselves and put them completely inside Harry Potter movie scenes, and the edits are completely seamless, and I believe that they're probably free to do that. Another Instagrammer that I love is Sarah from Magic Her Way. I believe that she lives in Hawaii, and so I can imagine that it's hard to get to places like Wizarding World, or it's not the easiest, the cheapest flight to take, but she does a lot of magical edits where she will take herself and put herself into the Wizarding World, Universal Studios, and all these different magical backgrounds, and they're so fun to look at. Now, the fourth and final tip I have for you guys is actually my favorite one, and that is to hit the shops. So when I go shopping, I obviously can't buy everything that I like and that I see, and sometimes what helps with that craving is to take a picture of the product. So what I like to do, for example, when I'm shopping for clothes and I really want something, I'll just take a really nice photo of me wearing the clothes in the shop, and that tends to satisfy the craving. Same with Harry Potter merchandise. So I'm gonna give you an example. 5 years ago or 6 years ago when I went to Wizarding World, I took this picture here, and as you can see, I'm in full-on Quidditch gear. However, most of the stuff I'm wearing in this photo is not even mine. The only thing that belongs to me is the goggles on my head, and that's actually from a Cirque du Soleil show that I got from the gift shop, and I brought with me to Wizarding World as a personal prop. But otherwise, the Gryffindor sweater I'm wearing, the broom, and the flag is all merchandise from the Quidditch supply store in the Wizarding World. So what I did was I just tried on the sweater, grabbed the broom, grabbed the flag, and proceeded to do like a 15-minute photo shoot in the middle of the store. And a crowd actually formed around me, and people were taking photos, and they found it very entertaining. But in the end, I got an amazing photo with all this merchandise that I didn't have to buy. If you do zoom into the photo, you can see that the tag is still there on the sweater. I actually did end up buying the sweater in the end because I decided that it was just a good investment to make in the long run. Fast forward a few years to this past December when I went to the Wizarding World again with my family. You can see that I took another Quidditch picture, and this one again was in the same Quidditch supply store in Diagon Alley at the Wizarding World. And this time the sweater I'm wearing is the sweater that I bought from a few years back, but the snitch I basically grabbed off the cashier's desk. The broom I grabbed from the box holding all the brooms, and I proceeded to do this time an hour photo shoot in the corner of the store, which I monopolized. And I took photos of myself, I took photos of my brother, I took photos of my mom, and we all just took photos of each other for a good hour and got amazing photos with just the merchandise that was lying around the store. And the best thing about Universal Studios is that the employees are so nice. They know that you're Harry Potter fans, they know that people are passionate, and they just let you do your thing. No one interfered with us, and we got great photos. You cannot be shy when you want a good photo. That concludes the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you found it helpful to learn these tips on how to make magical photos on a budget. Like I said, you don't need a huge collection of Harry Potter merchandise to make your feed fabulous. Keep being your magical selves. For me, it took me so many years to grow my collection. The only reason why it exploded in the last couple of years is because I'm 30 years old and I'm now financially independent, and I feel comfortable indulging in these Harry Potter luxuries. But be smart with your money. Keep being creative, keep being magical. If you have any other tips on how to shoot on a budget, please let us know down below in the comments, because I think a lot of us would love to hear. Thanks, guys.